You got Derek, and Derek, I'm not even going to try to pronounce your last name. How do I do this?
It's Hofrichter.
Hofrichter. All right, we got
Yeah.
Derek Hofrichter here. Derek is expert in self-defense, fitness, and combines that too with his training, and it's pretty cool. And I think like the self-defense thing is a really important, like actually being able to use the strength that you do gain in the fitness realm is an important thing. And Derek, can you kind of introduce yourself to the Grit Gym Tribe a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, my name's Derek. I've been practicing Krav Maga. That's the self-defense style that we teach. Krav Maga. It's an Israeli self-defense system. It comes from the Israeli military. They were the ones that created it, and they're the ones that
Hardcore.
actively practice it and use it. Yeah, and so it's used by a lot of other militaries and security agencies. But
Nice.
it actually, for the reasons that the Israeli military created and use it, makes it a great system for civilians. And so
Okay.
I've been training in it since 2002. I've been teaching it since about 2005, 2006, and then 7 years ago in 2011, I opened up my own gym. I
Nice.
I did it like as a passion and a hobby prior to that, and then
Sure.
I left the corporate world, put away my suits and ties and jackets and all that, and
And you
just
put your
quit my
pajamas on and went to work.
yeah, just literally quit my job and
Yeah.
opened a gym
Nice.
and have been teaching the self defense and fitness for about a little over 7 years.
Oh, cool. Nice. How's it gone so far?
It's going great. We've sort of found a very unique combo, like you mentioned, of having the self defense and the fitness in one spot. So it's been good for us. We're actually on our third location in 7 years because we've outgrown the previous two locations.
No
So
shit. That's
yeah, it's
awesome.
been fun. It's been wild.
Yeah. Why do you like in so like I agree with you. I think the fitness side of things, the strength side of things, and like what you gain. I don't think of the gym as what like just getting better at exercise. I think of getting better at this stuff so that you can be greater at all the other things that you do, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um,
It's
I think
that's
self-defense is
exactly it.
important.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
there's a saying, I forget who said it, but fitter people are harder to kill. And that just that encompasses a lot of different areas. But if you're thinking about the act of defending yourself, like if someone is trying to physically cause your harm and you need to physically respond back, that is a cardio activity. That's a strength activity, in
Yeah.
addition to the technique and strategies and tactics that go into it. But if you can have the best fighting technique in the world, but if you're completely out of shape, it doesn't matter.
Right.
You're going to gas out a few seconds into the attack, and it doesn't matter what you know at that point. So you have to be fit.
Yeah. Yeah. What got you into this originally anyway? Like did you get beat up in a parking lot or something? Like what's your story?
Kind of. It was I was
Oh, really? I
19.
was joking.
No, but and that's why I say kind of, because
Yeah,
it
she's no.
wasn't that bad, but it was like an eye-opening moment for me in that I was 19. I was I grew up in Nebraska. We'd kind of talked about before, like no
Yeah.
crime, small town, all that.
Yeah,
And
it's
then I
super
went
easy to be naive in the Midwest.
absolutely,
Yeah.
and then I went off to college in Washington D.C.
Oh
Big
wow.
city, very crime-ridden city. And I was doing some internships down there and riding public transportation one night home from my internship. And on the subway there, they call it the Metro. As we pulled up to a stop, I was standing there. A guy jumped up, kind of ran towards me, and I had like a laptop bag around my shoulder, and he grabs it, to grab it and hop off the subway at the stop. But it was attached to me. So he's like pulling me, and I'm holding onto the pole. And in that moment, like my bubble was burst. And that because I did what most people would do in that situation, and I completely froze and did nothing. That's
Sure.
just the
Which is the
standard.
worst thing you can do. Like
Absolutely. It's the
yeah.
worst thing that could happen. And I sort of thought, I think up to that point, that I was invincible. I'm almost 6'4". I was a high school basketball player, played a little in college. Like in my mind, it was like, well, if I'm ever in this situation, here's what I would do. It probably resembled something in like a Jason Bourne movie or something like that, right? The
That's the
steps that
hope,
I would,
right?
yeah. And then, I would handle it. And
Yeah.
then actually in that moment, I didn't handle it. I did the opposite of handling it. I did nothing. Fast forward to all that, nothing happened. I wasn't hurt. The bag was attached to me. The doors were closing. So the guy jumped off. But the mental scar that left, I remember that night just in my head over and over, imagining the situation, like what if he had had a knife? What if he had been able to
Yeah.
get me off the train? What if there had been two of them? And I just sort of made a decision in my own mind that I wasn't comfortable anymore with not having answers to the what ifs. So I started to seek out self-defense training, tried a few different martial arts, didn't find what I was looking for until I found a Krav Maga club there. It was this was back in 2002, and really no one was doing Krav Maga at that time. It's a relatively new thing that's come over to the US. Yeah, it's still growing and people are learning about it, but it's much more common now. You can typically find it in most cities now.
Cool.
Back then it was like LA, New York City, and DC were the only spots that had clubs going on.
Like
so
the biggest, like the really huge metro areas, like that.
Yeah. And so I in some ways now looking back on it to where it's led me, I was very fortunate that I got in on it at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because now that it's sort of booming a bit in popularity, I've just been training in it way longer than most people, so I have that advantage. But it was really out of a need for my own personal benefit that I got into it.
I think that a lot of people start out in this kind of thing because of that, like the original need, like they want to change something about their body, or they don't want to be defenseless, or they want to feel powerful, or whatever it is. They want to solve their own problem, and then through that they end up having this like passion to help others too. Is that kind of what you found?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And you hear that too about like, a personal trainer, they themselves lost like, 60, 70 pounds, and then that changed everything. That was exactly for me. Getting into it, especially at the young age of 19, and just the mental aspects of Krav Maga were a huge influence of finishing up my college career, my adult life, just the passion of having something consistent to train in.
Sure.
The confidence that comes from self-defense training, it all just made the biggest difference for me at different points and different ups and downs of my life that I went through. When you get that passion, and why wouldn't you want to share that with other people and let them experience the same thing that we got to experience?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's just one of those things. It's kind of like this, like it's almost easy to be romantic about it, but at the same time, it's like, man, like for one, it does help me to help other people, and for two, like I like doing. I like this stuff, But
right.
What have you found working with people? Like what's the response been? Like, why do people come in and talk to you about this stuff? Do they have a similar experience to you, or?
I would actually say that the majority of people that come in have not yet had a self-defense scenario,
like a spot where they needed it. You mean like they got attacked or something like that?
Yeah, it's good. I think
that's great.
Which is good. We do get a lot of people who come in after the effect, and that is true. But I would say the majority, the average person coming in has not yet been put into that situation, but they can imagine it, or just watch the news, and there's just kind of like this, I think, feeling right now that it's not a safe time to like be out in public, just overall, like it's like I think people are just maybe more aware of the risk of their everyday life. We see things like people going in and causing violence in workplaces, going in and causing violence in schools, going in and causing violence in churches and synagogues and temples, places that maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we never really imagined there being an issue. We viewed those as like pretty safe places that were immune to a lot of that stuff. And now it's, weekly on the news, we see it happening, or we hear people talking about it, or, companies now enacting like policies for if someone comes in and is being violent in the workplace. It's just a different time. And I think people now are more conscious of the fact that, hey, if something happened, would I know what to do? Would I actually know what to do if I'm being honest? Like letting the ego kind of get out of the way, and would I really know what to do? And if not, should I do something about that? Should I learn what to do?
Well, yeah, I mean, there has to be a certain amount of like, if you can take responsibility for everything in your life,
right? Why
wouldn't you take responsibility for this too?
Yeah, which, as we know, with when we now talk about the fitness side, it's the same parallels of like, if we know that working out regularly and eating better is going to extend our life, extend our quality of life, like wouldn't we take the action to do that? But we know how hard that is. And it's the same thing with self-defense. We know what our exposure is. We know that someone could mug us tomorrow. So what do we do about it today? You know, and then that's tough making that first step, whether it's self-defense or fitness.
Yeah, and it's probably a positive too to get that idea out of your head that, oh, I'll react in this way. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Whereas like almost everybody gets it wrong, like everything wrong the first time that they try to do it. So
yeah, it's
like it goes back to that drilling thing. Like you have to drill and drill something. What is it that saying that a professional doesn't practice till he gets it right. He practices it till he can't get it wrong.
Yeah, till he can't mess it up. Yeah. And that's it's funny how what our mind does, you know, to us when we think about different things, you know. And it's, you know, some things like we would never imagine that we could just figure it out. Like if you've never played piano before, right?
Yeah.
And let's say it's a silly scenario, but let's imagine that you felt like there's going to be a threat on your life at some point, that if on the spot you couldn't play like a perfect sonata.
Yeah, someone's got a gun to my head and saying, play the piano. And I'm like,
and you realize that this threat might exist, and you're like, I'll figure it out. Like in the moment, I'm sure, like, how hard's the piano? I can figure it out. But you know, we would never do that for something like piano, because we understand like it's a physical skill. There's structure. There's, you know, and it's going to take time. But then on the fighting side, on the self-defense side, most people think that exact thought. I'll figure it out. Even though like just like professional musicians spend hours a day, professional fighters spend hours a day. It's a physical skill that you have to hone. You will not just figure it out in the moment. You can get lucky in the moment, you know, and
totally.
You know, like maybe even I would say in my scenario with the guy trying to steal my bag, maybe I was just very, very lucky.
Circumstance worked out in your favor, right?
Yeah, like, but it could have easily just
kept your bag, and
it could have easily been very, very bad. Yeah, and so I don't understand why, you know, when it comes to the area of like self-defense, that we think we're way more capable than we are. Yeah. Until we have the bubble burst, and either the bubble is burst from a bad encounter or by coming into a self-defense class in a safer environment and a more structured environment, and realizing like, oh yeah, like I really don't know what I'm doing. I should probably practice this.
Yeah. I think it's easy to think that your skill level is higher than it is, and it's easy to underestimate. It's easy to underestimate how big of a like how skilled the attacker is coming at you, and it's easy to underestimate how much work it's going to take to actually learn these skills. I think we're amazing underestimators.
Right, and then in addition to all that, underestimating the impact that a bigger, stronger person will have against us as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that even what was that was it Rio? It wasn't I don't remember which Olympics it was, but it was recent that the judo guy won the world championship, and then he got beat to death that night.
Right.
It's a really terrible scenario, right? But he had, I think it was like 5 people that were in on, you know, and this is a world champ.
Right.
In judo. It's which is a pretty powerful fighting style, is like using your opponent's weaknesses against you, right? So or strength against them. And it's just amazing. Anyway, I don't know where I was going with that, but
no, I think that's a perfect example. Even someone at the top of his game, you know, and something that involves combat, you know, that would still the odds, you know, with multiple attackers, like it's this exactly ties into self-defense training, because as a judokan or a judo player, you never ever deal with more than one-on-one. Right. There's never a point in the match where a second opponent comes in and, you know, and it's 2-on-1, 3-on-1. So
very interesting.
Yeah. So that's very, very specific training for one-on-one. Now, all of a sudden in self-defense, there is no rules about one-on-one or, you know, mutual combat type of deal. And so now he didn't have the training for what to do with multiple attackers. And I would even argue that, you know, I love judo. There's a lot of judo within Krav Maga. The guy that created Krav Maga originally was actually a boxer, a wrestler, and he did judo. So there's a lot of judo in Krav, but judo is not super effective in the way that you turn your back and you really isolate yourself with one attacker. It's not super effective if there's multiple attackers. So I think that story, like in the extreme, you know, tells us a little bit about, if even this guy who practices fighting every day can't handle that situation, how are we going to handle it with zero training?
Someone, the absolute best in the world,
Yeah.
and he doesn't pull it off. And yeah, exactly. How long do you think, like, just a basic understanding of a few self-defense things, or do you think that this should be something that people do weekly, or like you should become masters of it? Like, how much do people need to devote to this thing in order to really be to better their position if something were to happen?
That's a great question, and it's a great topic, because obviously with anything, more is going to be better.
Sure.
But we have to be realistic, and I think that's why my gym specifically has been successful with attracting people, is that we are making it possible for the regular person, the mom, the dad,
Sure.
the doctor, the lawyer, the CPA, the software IT guy. Those are the people that are training with me. It's not the professional fighter, because the professional fighter can dedicate it like it's a full-time job. For my average person who's coming in and training with me, if we can get 3 hours in the week, that's great into their schedule, just with work commitments, family commitments, everything they have going on. So that's again why, earlier I mentioned that Krav Maga was really great for civilians, because it was specifically made to be easy to learn. So it doesn't require crazy flexibility, crazy strength, because we always assume our attacker is stronger than us anyway. So none of the techniques rely on strength, and it takes into account that person where we need like the 80-20 rule in full effect. Like, how can we spend a lower amount of time but maximize our results out of it? So it's the way that happens is through a few different strategies. One, it's immediately focusing on the most common ways that you might be attacked, and not getting into like really, really crazy what if scenarios, but
like 30 ninjas drop from the ceiling.
Absolutely. And that's the fun stuff. Yeah. I do a lot of like public speaking and get up in front of groups and things like that. And when I open it to questions, it's always like, well, what if they had like 2 guns, a chainsaw, and I'm like, that's pretty bad. Like, if you get yourself into that situation, man, I don't know, like, that's bad. Instead, like, for us, like regular people, the most common way that we're going to be attacked is someone's going to grab us, someone's going to choke us, someone's going to punch us. Okay, so if we can focus in on that, that's basically our beginner curriculum. And so someone can be pretty good with that in 4 to 6 months, 2 to 3 times a week, to where in 80-20 rule, let's say the 80% likely chance that your attacker grabs you, chokes you, or tries to hit you. And so if we really focus on that for 4 to 6 months, like, yes, we can have a pretty high level of competency for that, because we're not wasting our time going all over the place. If someone stays past the 4 to 6 months, there's more to learn. We then move to the next most likely thing, which is your attacker takes you down to the ground, and there's a struggle on the ground, pinning you on the ground. So we keep practicing our baseline, which is being grabbed, being choked, being hit, and then we add in the ground element. And then someone goes through that, and then if they keep with it, then there's more complicated
skill sets right there. Like, I wrestled I wrestled for like 12 years.
Oh yeah.
And then I boxed for like another 2, and like they're just I mean, they're not even slightly similar at all. And people think like, oh, fighting's fighting. It's like, no, it's not even close.
Yeah. And once someone has if they spend 2 to 3 years on the fundamentals of it, then we'll start to really work onto like weapon defenses, like knives, guns, blunt objects. Everyone kind of wants to start with like the knife and the gun, because that's like the sexy thing. And that's, I mentioned Jason Bourne earlier, but what I tell people is, if you can't handle someone who's unarmed, you're not going to handle someone who's armed. It's not going to happen. So until you can show competency in handling an unarmed person, let's not worry about them being armed.
Right. Well, yeah. Even if they, like, let's say, even if you did have to get to your gun that you're holding,
right?
Like if a gun is in your purse, let's say, and you've got to get to your gun, you've still got to get this person off of you long enough to get to your gun to use your gun. So you're still like, no matter what, like you're going to end up using these defenses.
That is very astute of you, and I wish more people thought that, because one of my like biggest things that make me roll my eyes is like, you see like maybe there's like a news story posted online where it's like someone comes up behind someone like at a grocery store walking down the street and attacks them, and then you'll see in the comments like, that's why I always carry my gun. It's like, are you watching the same event happen? There was no way possible that if you don't even know if this person has a gun or not, there was no time to get to it unless you walk around with it drawn, all the time and like scanning everywhere. In most scenarios of violence, your gun is not going to help you. You have to have the ability to fight to get to the point that the gun can help you. And I'm a big advocate of going through the training and being proficient with firearms and concealed carrying. If you go through all the training, I'm a huge advocate of that, and I do train how to blend that in. I'm here in Arizona, like everybody has guns in Arizona, so like that's a big thing. Like most all my customers or my clients, do have that as a part, but it's very specific that you have to understand that the gun is not just a magical thing that automatically makes you safe. That there will be a fight involved, and the fight will be over either keeping the gun, getting to the gun, or getting space to get the gun out.
Jeez, yeah, it's a wild thing to think about. Like no one really thinks they're going to get there until they are there, and then it's like, well, would you rather be prepared or not?
Right. Yeah, and you can't take the gun with you everywhere. Also, so if that's 100% of your safety strategy is the firearm, there's holes. Riding on an airplane,
Oh yeah, and the gun is extremely like an offense thing. Like there's a difference between playing defense and playing offense, right? Well, I would think of a gun as being like if I'm holding a gun, I'm trying to like I am very much just became the put myself on offense. Whereas like you call it self defense for a reason. Like you're defending yourself first. Like how do you that's one of the things I really like about jiu-jitsu versus wrestling is like jiu-jitsu is more about submitting your opponent and wrestling is more about dominating your opponent. It's much more jiu-jitsu is much more a game of chess than wrestling is. It's a really nice thing. So like if you can learn some of these things, it's like how do you submit your how do you get into a defensive position where you can actually render your opponent useless, like better off you're going to be, right? I think anyway. Is that accurate?
Yeah, no, that's it. And oftentimes when we talk about self-defense, we're talking about like after it's gotten down to the violent part of it, like the physical action. But for me, self-defense is it starts with situational awareness. It starts with avoidance. It starts with diplomacy. It starts with taking the high road in interactions with the thought of of like I don't know. You never know what anyone is capable unless they're like someone like very deeply. But when you're out and about, it's amazing how when you hear about violence like in the news, it started with something minor, like someone parked in the spot that I was hoping to park in. Like in the scheme of life, like that is a very, very minor deal. There's other parking spots, but then people get shot over that. Why?
You disagreed with me, like over something
and they
ridiculous.
Escalate it versus I talk almost every time I teach a class, or quite often my students know, or anyone that trains with me know that I always talk, like just if you're at the point where you're using violence to defend yourself, more than likely you made some mistakes along the way.
Probably.
Not all the time. There's some stuff that's just completely unavoidable. Wrong time, wrong place.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about here. Yeah.
But a lot of times though, just saying, apologizing, and moving on, and then so then when we add in like the gun element, if we're to the point where we're pulling out a firearm to use it against someone, now we're talking about like things have really, really, really gotten bad. And if we were competent with being able to handle ourselves, maybe we wouldn't have to go to that option yet. Like you're talking about, like with jiu-jitsu or something where if I don't know if I've never been trained in self-defense, but I'm carrying a gun, like where's the line? Is it if someone shoves me? Right? Can I, is it if someone punches me? Is it if someone grabs my shirt? Like if I don't have any other skills to handle those type of aggressions, if I only have the gun, like you're basically just waiting for a line to get crossed.
Yeah. And what's the line? Like
exactly. And that's tough.
I don't know what it is. Like I'm not that presumptuous. Like, I don't know what it is, but like, I don't want to get in that situation just at all.
Yeah, legally, the line is where you can articulate that you felt in danger of your life.
That's still ambiguous.
Yeah. Right. And so like, I couldn't in good faith argue that I had to shoot somebody because they punched me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I couldn't either.
Right. And so then that being the case, that means the gun is not relevant to that interaction. So learning how to defend punches, learning how to move my head, learning how to keep the appropriate space so that I can see the punch develop, learning how to follow up after someone throws a punch. Now that's of high importance to me.
Yeah. And okay, so how do you handle the question, or I don't know if it's accusation, but like, well, you're a 6'4" big guy. You don't have to worry about this stuff.
Yeah, like, no, I get that. And the bigger we are, the easier it will be to defend ourselves. Absolutely. Yeah. Because there's a reason why in sport fighting they have weight classes.
Yeah.
Because if there were no weight classes, it would be boring, because 99 out of 100
the
times
big guy would just win.
The big guy would win, well, especially in
time anyway. Like, I definitely got beat in wrestling by some, like, there's this one national champ. He probably weighed 140 when I was weighing like 220, and he just smoked. Like, but he was just so damn technical and so fast. Like every time they wrestle, just kill me. But at the same time, like, that's an anomaly. That's
right. It's gonna be the anomaly, and so of course, like, being bigger than most people, I'm bigger than the average person.
Yeah.
But there are still a lot of people bigger than me. Yeah. And there's a lot of I've seen them. I have some of them as members. I've trained with them, and so the proportion will still like play itself out. Like, if I get attacked by a 6'6", 250-pound dude, that's like a smaller person, being attacked by average. So I don't get to like cheat my way out of good technique, because I am not training.
What's going to save you?
Yeah, I am not training for the attack from the smaller person. That's not what I'm training for. I'm training for the attack from someone bigger than me. I also have other considerations too, like protecting my wife, protecting my family.
Yep.
To where, like, just being big isn't gonna stop it right there. If I stand up and say stop, for a person who with the intent of doing violence, they're still gonna do it. So I still have to be capable of doing it.
Yeah, and how can you subdue them without adding to the violence? But I think you're spot on too, and like how you said that there, like I think that gives more power, more credence, whatever it is, to the smaller person taking the responsibility that they can anyway.
Yeah,
and doing some of this stuff.
Absolutely. So for none of us, myself included, none of us are going to train to rely on our strength. We're going to train to rely on, as you mentioned, like for the smaller people that are able to pull it off, it's a combination of like technical, just being really, really good on the technique, being fast, and then also it's a mindset. This is where the mindset comes in, of especially in self-defense, but the mindset of I will do what it takes.
Yeah.
And
that goes through, I think that goes through the beginning of what you said too, like way before this ever got to a violent situation.
Yeah, absolutely. That mindset, the mind is the most powerful weapon.
Yeah. I like to say that's why if I'm at all persuasive or have any kind of like ability to pull out a silver tongue every now and then, I say it's because I'm 6'4" also, and I played football in college. And you go to a bar with a bunch of drunk people, and someone will have beer muscles, and I can't tell you how many fights I've talked my way out of, where I'm just like, I'm not going to fight you. For one, I'm not going to jail for your dumb ass, and for two, like, you don't stand a chance. Like, how in the world do you think you stand a chance? Like, no, there's no win in this for me. I don't care anyway.
That's brilliant. Yeah,
not even getting there, and I think that's a big mindset thing too. But then also, when you do get there, the only fighting lesson I ever had before I did the boxing thing was this guy who told me, if you get in a fight, don't stop till they're dead. I was like, whoa, that's crazy.
That's true. So Krav Maga is a very aggressive martial art. It's known for being where it's either on or off. Like we don't typically do things of like, like the mindset of like something like judo where it's like use their, manipulate them, or any of that. It's either 100% on or 100% off. We don't, the gray areas are the
life is on the line. You better think that way.
Yeah, and that comes from the mindset. The mindset has to be tough enough. You have to want to survive it more than the attacker wants whatever they want from you. And when you look at a lot of crime statistics, or you listen to interviews from people that were like serial killers or serial rapists, and you listen to like their thought process, they're not really that committed to a specific target. They do it for like, the thrill or whatever kind of perverted pleasures they're getting out of it. But oftentimes, anytime when they experience resistance, they stop, because it's just like they know that there's someone else that they can move on to that's not gonna resist. So
any obstacle that you can put in their way might be the thing. It's like locking your door. A real thief can get into your house, but
absolutely,
if they press that doorknob and it's already locked, it might be the tiniest thing, but it might get them to turn away.
And the example that I use quite often, because especially if I'm teaching like a women's self-defense seminar and we're talking about the size issues, that it's like, we all either have experienced this or we know exactly what this looks like, but try picking up a cat that doesn't want to be picked up. Right? This little 10, 12 pound animal that, that's way bigger. Your size difference on that cat is way bigger than the size difference of this human that's trying to attack you. And if that cat does not want to be picked up, it wins. And why?
And you get up too.
Right. And then that's why. It's a combination of the cat is so committed to not wanting to be picked up that it's willing to, shriek and do weird contortions and claw. And you realize pretty quickly, like, I didn't want to pick up this cat that bad in the first place. Right. So you just let it go. That's oftentimes like when we're dealing like with something like being grabbed and held onto from the attacker. If you just go crazy and you're biting, spitting, screaming, stomping, scratching, like the attacker is going to be like, this is nuts. Like, this is a crazy person. Like, why? It's not worth it. It's not worth it. And their act of giving up and letting go is how you get away.
Yeah. I think that's fantastic. Like, we all hope that this never happens, and that we can start, like, the culture in the U.S. and the world can, like, dampen violence and all that stuff, so this never happens to anybody, right? But at the same time, like, I think it's in our best interest to be prepared for such a thing if it were to happen, and take responsibility for what you can. I think anyway.
Yeah, and
wild guess there that it's probably
so to kind of tie it into with the fitness side of things in a lot of ways, for me, getting into self-defense was my entryway into fitness also. Because once I started to train the self-defense, now you want every edge that you can get. And so even though I was tall, I was actually always very, very skinny. So even at like almost 6'4", back when I was 19, 20, 21, I was like 135, 140 pounds.
Holy shit.
So, that's super skinny. And so my height, even though I was tall, like, that doesn't necessarily give you strength on that. And so when I would train and practice with guys that were even shorter than me or smaller than me, that they were stronger than me, that got me into lifting weights. Like, that was, and so now I weigh closer to like 200 pounds, and that was from, over the years, 10 years of consistently lifting weights and putting on muscle mass. And it's part of that led into, okay, I'm lifting weights, but I'm not putting on the mass. Nutrition. So then I started to get into nutrition and understanding that. So for me, self-defense, it makes no sense to me to be worried about like someone breaking into your house. And so taking the steps to do that, but then eating like fast food at the same time, not worried about like the intruders into your like arteries. And to me, it doesn't make sense to be obsessed over like my personal safety, but not my innard safety.
Right.
Just the same way, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to be really concerned about my health and how I eat, but not the personal safety from the physical side. Like, because it's all getting to the same point where we basically want to be in peace. We want no health complications. We want to be functional. We don't want to have like back pain and neck pain throughout our life. And if someone tries to take something from us or hurt us or hurt someone we love, we want to be able to stop them. It's all the same thing to me.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think I've never thought of it quite that way, but I think that's a fantastic way to say it. Like, why would you be putting, if if you're worried about a garbage person coming and attacking you, then why are you putting garbage in your body? Yeah.
Yeah, because it's
still an attack on your, it's
yeah,
still an attack on your health and your well-being.
absolutely. And it's all something that you can do something about,
Yeah.
And so it's like it's like everything is all built around survival. Like I think that's like the base fear that fuels a lot of things is survival, or desire, fear, desire, whatever you want to call it, survival.
You do a ton of shit to survive.
Yeah, and survival is eating well now so that I survive through my 60s, 70s, 80s. That's survival. And just like I don't want to get mugged on my way to work today and then not be there to provide for my family. That's survival. And it's all the same. So to pick or choose one in my mind, I just can't do the mental like gymnastics to really be like I'm interested in this part, but not this part or this part. And that is honestly why my business is called EBKM Self-Defense and Fitness. It's a holistic survival approach. It's all of them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's not just one thing. Like if you're going to look at it's one of the reasons that like I end up disagreeing with orthoscopic surgeons and physical therapists sometimes. Like it's like you might have a shoulder injury, but your big toe could be something in your big toe. It could be something in your hip. Like we can't just look at this and just throw everything out and say like, oh no, this is the problem. This is where the pain is. Well, like that might not be the scenario that we're actually, or the source that we're actually trying to find.
Yeah. And just like with, in that same vein, like if someone comes to me and they're like, I'm really worried about being able to defend myself. I live in maybe it's a sketchy neighborhood. All the neighbors have been broken into, and all that. And so I'm really, really worried about self-defense, and when we have that conversation, before someone starts, we have a very encompassing conversation about like a lot of aspects, but, and then we get to the point where they're also like 75 pounds overweight, let's say, like we sort of have to have a conversation of like, what is the biggest threat to your health and safety and well-being right now? Is it the potential attacker, or is it the potential heart attack? And which is more likely to get to you first? But having that holistic approach, we can start working on the weight while we're learning self-defense moves, because again, just physically boxing or wrestling, that's a hell of a workout.
Right. It really is. Yeah. I think people underestimate how big of a workout those two are too. Like,
oh, it's an incredible workout, but we can't neglect the diet.
Right. How are you going to recover when you're putting crap in your body? How are you going to sleep? How are you going to do all of the things if you're not going to put good food in your body?
Yeah. And so, it's funny. A lot of people come to the Krav Maga classes seeking it out. Actually, more so because of fitness reasons, because they have heard, Krav Maga is a fantastic workout. We've had a bit of a bump over the last few years because it's become like a celebrity workout, like a lot of movie action stars now, like Tom Cruise, Angelina Jolie, Brad Pitt, like Matt Damon, like all these guys, like they sign up for an action role. The studio immediately gets them a Krav Maga trainer to start training them, on all that. And so then you get interviews of like, how did you get that body for this movie? Well, I did Krav Maga, but they also people see that, but they ignore that they also said like, they did Krav Maga. They lifted weights 4 times a week. They did yoga. They did, all this other type of stuff, but it's definitely elevated it up because of celebrities doing it. So we do get a lot of people who come in more so actually with fitness goals in mind. So the side benefit is they're going to learn how to defend themselves, because that's our mission first and foremost. But it's like I don't think any like strictly fitness gyms in my area should worry about that with us, because it's a feeder, just like it was for me. People who would not normally walk into a CrossFit place or a fitness place for whatever reason will walk into my gym to learn self-defense. And then they start to lose the pounds, they lose the weight, they get that bug, and then they go into now they're doing CrossFit, now they're lifting, now they're doing other things. It's a feeder. It's like it's the gateway drug into the fitness world, doing self-defense. It's interesting how that happens.
Yeah, I mean, whatever gets them there. It's just it's a really great thing when somebody takes responsibility for their own health. however they do decide to get there. But,
right.
Yeah. Anyway, well, we've got to wrap this up. This has been fantastic talking to you, though. Like, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
If I'm ever in Phoenix, I'll have to pop over.
Come by and take a Krav Maga class.
Yeah, definitely will. Maybe like I might even have to talk to you about coming up and teaching us some of your stuff. But
I would love to do that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. But anyway, anything that you want to? Well, first of all, where can people find you to follow you?
Yeah, so they can. My website for my gym is evkmselfdefense.com.
Nice.
And then if they search my name, like Derrek Hofrichter, that's my name on Instagram also. So if they want to follow me there, I post a lot of like self-defense tips and videos. So if maybe they don't have access to a place to train, they can at least start picking up some of the tactics and strategies by watching those videos.
Yeah, I saw one girl on there. She was really pretty. She had dark hair, and I think it was you. And you came behind her and grabbed her, and she goes, "This is how you do this." She's like, "You get your base, and then she started, and she's like, you wail at him like this," and it was almost like he didn't know how to turn it down and started laughing and stuff. And I was like, "Oh, that's great. I know what that's going on there." But no, it looks like a fun place for sure.
Yeah, and that's the real thing too that we didn't talk about is it's a lot of fun. That's if something's not fun, people aren't going to stick with it no matter how great it is. If it's fitness and the workout's not fun, and just like with the self-defense, it has to be fun for people to stick with it long term.
Yeah, I think people saying underestimation this whole time, but I think it's easy to like people underestimate how much like fun it is to just like physically express yourself towards somebody else, in that way where it's like you're going to wrestle around, you're going to compete, you're going to like get sweaty and dirty, and people are like, "Ooh, gross! I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to be out." It's like a different relationship that you develop with people, and it's great. Some of the closest relationships that I've ever had were guys on wrestling teams, whereas like. And people are like, "Oh, that's so gay," and it's like, dude, there is nothing gay about that. Like, believe me. But it's like this weird sort of, I don't know, connection that you get out of doing those things. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's a strong community that bonds around, just like in fitness and in self-defense as well. That's strong community, and that's I love my job. I'm so happy that I quit the corporate world and I get to do this every day because it's awesome. It's so much fun.
Yeah, I can't imagine like putting a suit and tie on and sitting at a desk all day, like
especially in Phoenix when it's 120 degrees. Yeah,
I bet. But all right, well, thanks for being here, man. I really appreciate it. Anything that you want to leave the crowd, the Grit Gym tribe with before you go?
No, just I hope that maybe some people who are listening to this, more so they're used to the fitness. Maybe they've never considered the other part of the survival. It's not just fitness, it's not just nutrition, but also just taking care of yourself and protecting people around you. And again, it's all part of the same thing. So maybe that there's a light bulb or some curiosity that I piqued in some people.
Yeah, I hope that people start thinking about how they're going, not just the strength that they're going to gain, but how they're going to apply it.
Yeah, that's great.
Anyway, well, thanks for being here, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.